Okay, well, we'll just let everyone get into the meeting room. Give it another minute. All right, well, hello, everybody, and I hope that your day is going well wherever you find yourself on this wonderful February day. I am, on behalf of the Law Society of Nunavut, introducing Victoria Perry, who is, we're very grateful. She's done a lot of great work with the Law Society of Nunavut with respect to access to justice, and she's going to be speaking today about Indigenous-centered practice from an advanced perspective. So assuming some level of understanding on the part of the people attending today. This CLE will be recorded and available on our website. And I do encourage people, if you are looking for CLE, to check out those offerings as well, as you are perusing ways to stay current on a number of different aspects of legal practice, including Indigenous issues. So Victoria, thank you again for being here, and I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I would like to also take a moment to introduce Amanda Ford, who is going to be running this presentation with me. Amanda is a court worker, and we'll introduce ourselves in just a moment. Feel free to join me on screen. I know some folks are maybe eating. This is kind of a lunch hour for some of us, but feel free to join on video if you would like. It's nice to see your faces, and I'm hoping that we can have a bit more of a conversation throughout this CLE rather so than me and Amanda talking at you so much as is sometimes done in these CLEs. Looking around the classroom, I suppose, the Zoom room here, I see that we have so many folks who are already advanced practitioners in client-focused offerings. And so I'm hoping that where you feel comfortable, you can feel free to chime in and join the conversation and add your perspective. Please feel free to raise up your hand at any point throughout the presentation, and then we can call on you to provide some of your own insights. So we are going to get started here, running this advanced client-focused practice with a specific perspective on practicing in Nunavut. I have done versions of this presentation in the past, but they've been focused more on working with Indigenous clients generally. And so I'm so privileged to have Amanda Ford here today to really bring home her perspectives on being Inuk and working in Nunavut for just as long as she has. We're going to go over today 6 areas. Firstly, we're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're really focusing in on law, language, land, and culture as the 4 pillars of what we will discuss today. And then we'll go into a wider group discussion. We'll watch a little video and talk about community values here in Nunavut. So to introduce ourselves, looking around the room, I think we know most folks here, but as you maybe know, my name is Victoria Perry. I am a sole practitioner of Perry Law. I will not be alone for much longer. I have some folks coming to join me, which is very nice. And I have been practicing in Nunavut for a bit over 5 years now, 5.5 years or so. I am a Métis Cree woman from from Winnipeg, and I grew up here in Winnipeg, which is where I'm coming to this presentation from right now. And I've been always very involved in my community, and I'm still very involved in my community today. And I've been very lucky to be welcomed into Nunavut by so many amazing folks during my time working in the territory. I'll pass it over to Amanda Ford to give her own introduction. Again, a woman who probably doesn't need any introduction.
Hello, my name is Amanda Ford. I'm from Rankin, grew up in Well Cove, lived in Iqaluit. I'm a court worker. I've always worked with people. Um, grew up outland a lot. Um, did a lot of growing up hunting and all the things that you see us doing. We still practice that. And I work with a lot of lawyers here that come from different places and deal with Inuit. Um, and I hope you guys learn that body language is a big part of our culture, especially the ones that have parents that went to residential school or people that have parents that were relocated. We just picked that up from our parents, and body language is a big part that lawyers that come up here should learn. Eye contact. I could give you guys examples later.
Thanks, Amanda. Besides being a court worker right now, Amanda was also a JP for some time. So she's been bumping around working in justice for quite a long time. So she's really got quite a unique perspective to share with us today. So we're going to start off with why we're all here to learn about a little bit something about the law. So laws have existed in Nunavut since time immemorial. Inuit Kalyamayakchinjit is today often what's used to reflect on Inuit ways of being and knowing. I know that many folks in this room have much better perspectives and understandings, personal understandings of how laws exist, traditional laws exist in Nunavut and how they're used on an everyday basis. But what's important for especially some of the newer practitioners to Nunavut in the room here is to take a moment to reflect on the laws which have been on this land and which really are important to the populations that we serve. We're coming in to Nunavut with Southern colonial laws, laws which were imposed on Inuit. And for some folks, that represents the ongoing colonization of the North. We have folks who living in Nunavut who may or may not be interested in participating in the colonial legal system, particularly because they have their own body of laws. Of course, today, some being codified within the IQ principles. And so what's important when we're working with Inuit in Nunavut is to recognize and understand that in your dealings with folks, with clients in Nunavut, that they already have a rich culture and legal history when we're interacting with them. When working with clients, they have their own ways, community ways of dealing with issues that arise. And each community, from what I've found from interacting with folks in the criminal law space, there are different ways of dealing with things in different communities. Something that I like to do in my own practice is to ask folks, not in every case, but in some cases, to ask folks what would be the situation if this circumstance was presented within the community and the court wasn't here. What do you think would be the community consensus and result of dealing with this matter? And sometimes those responses are appropriate to raise within the colonial legal setting. It can also be useful to work closely with community court workers in a given community to learn more about the traditional laws that would take place there, and to utilize those court workers to provide Gladue principles if you're working on a criminal matter, or provide other types of submissions if you're working on a non-criminal matter. Of course, I am predominantly in the criminal law space, and so that's where the majority of my personal examples will come from. So when I am in community and there's an opportunity to have a court worker who has lived in the community for a long time and knows an individual's family, I like to engage them wherever possible and wherever they're comfortable to go up and take the stand on a sentencing submission and provide that unique insight into how the community may deal with the situation before the court, and to provide direct information on an individual's family lineage. Right now, I know we're so blessed to have Saizula, who is presently writing some Gladue reports, and I believe there's Lisa Tutu, who's also writing Gladue reports now. So we have some options in terms of finding legal ways to incorporate, not legal ways, finding formal ways to incorporate traditional law into a colonial court setting and offer it to the judge for interpretation through a Gladue report, through an Inuit Gladue report writer. But of course, that's something that takes time. It's not something that you can do when you're quickly on a circuit. And so that's, I think, a great opportunity to use the court workers and other elders in the community where they're willing to participate with you and present. You'll see this graphic here on this screen provides some activities of leadership with IQ principles. And so I didn't create this. This is something I've pulled from online, but I really appreciate this like breaking down of several of the principles and thinking about how each principle can relate to leadership. It provides quite a few options here of how you can incorporate some ideas from the IQ principles into your own practice when working with clients specifically. Amanda, I'd love to hear from you on what your perspectives are and what we've been talking about so far, and if you have any suggestions for how lawyers can better work with Inuit and be able to recognize the laws that exist in Nunavut.
It would be nice to see lawyers talk simple plain language and not use big words. And if you're dealing with somebody who's got really poor English, it would be nice if you guys just slow down, tone your voice down. Some lawyers talk really fast and start getting really loud. A lot of people that don't speak Inuktitut usually don't follow what you're saying if you're speaking too fast or using big words. So use plain language, no big words. Keep your voice. Don't get too loud. Ask every now and then if they understand, and if somebody's interpreting for you. Some lawyers have a habit of talking really long without giving the interpreter a chance to. interpret what they're saying. Vic?
Thanks so much, Amanda. You really pulled in some of these points from this graphic here about how we can be leaders in our client-centered practices, using this body language, having an open mind, bringing a caring attitude, active listening, especially to the interpreters that you're working with and the community folks. The community court workers that you're working with, advocacy service, supporting everyone. You really pulled in all of these points.
Another thing I try, and when I meet new lawyers, I always teach them that Inuit, or they use body language. So when somebody comes in, you start asking questions. Somebody starts using their eyebrows, putting their eyebrows up, that means yes. And they crinkle their nose, that means no. And then they'll use their shoulder to say, I don't know. Like just simple things like that. Um, some people don't understand when you're talking to them, they're communicating, but because you don't understand, you think they're silent.
Amanda, I'd love to, if you'd be willing to turn on your camera and model what that looks like, just in case we've got some folks who've never seen it before in the room.
Okay. Can you see me?
I can, yep.
So this means yes, putting your eyebrows up, and then doing this with your nose is no, and using your shoulders is I don't know. You'll see a lot of people, especially the young ones that are shy, will use that.
Perfect. Thank you. Ioannis Yannikis, I think your mic is just on, which is fine if you want us to hear, but otherwise, just so you know. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next slide here, we have language. And so when we think about the language that we use as lawyers, we all know that legalese, that high level legal language is not accessible. But I think it's always good for us to really think about the language that we're using when we're working with clients, particularly clients in Nunavut. The level of language that some folks have is just so different than what we use in law school and what we use when speaking to the courts. Language was taken away from Indigenous people across Canada, and in this presentation, we're focused on Inuit, and they were not exempt from that. Unfortunately, language, the taking away of language for some folks resulted in a situation where they cannot fluently speak their mother tongues, nor can they fluently speak the imposed languages of French or English. So we've got some folks that we meet in communities who aren't able to communicate fully in any language because of this legacy of colonization and really ongoing colonization that we have in Nunavut. Your clients have rights to language in the courtroom. Often we have interpreters present in the courtroom, but sometimes we don't. After a court hearing, it is a good practice to distill what was said with your client to ensure they understood what was going on and appreciated fully their hearing. As Amanda just discussed, there is a large unspoken language component when working with folks in Nunavut. You really need to pay quite close attention to a client's body language and how they're using their face and their physicality to convey to you what exactly they mean. Standing up for your clients in the courtroom is so important to building a client-focused practice. Unfortunately, there has been multiple times in my practice where I've been in a courtroom and an interpreter was not available, and certain members of the bench, of the Southern bench, who come up and on a rotational basis and sit in the courts in Nunavut, don't fully always appreciate the level of language that exists in Nunavut. And so ensuring that our clients are receiving appropriate care and consideration when they're accessing their language rights in the courtroom, and ensuring that they have access to interpreters is really important. And besides it being your client's right to access those services, for your client to see you standing up for them in that way, to ensure that they're able to access perhaps a printed version of their case in Inuktitut. It's important for building that reputation with your clients and with the community, to make sure that they have access to the documents that are written about them, if they're not fluent English speakers, and especially where the language used in a written decision is a higher level than their comprehension skills. Amanda, do you have anything that you want to add about language?
Not right now.
Sure. The next piece we're going to talk about is land. And so connection to the land is very important for most folks in Nunavut, and is codified, well, incorrectly here. I'm noticing this square should not be here. Codified in the IQ principles, as respect and care for the land, animals, and the environment. There's been many times in my personal practice where in my criminal practice where I'll be meeting with a client who, when I'm asking them about the charges they're facing, will start to explain what happened, but will start to explain what happened several days prior, when they were out on the land. And so not always, starting with where I think the beginning of the story is. And it can be exciting to, not exciting, it can be persuasive for the client to want to ask you, or for you to want to ask the client to move forward past that and get to the real meat of what they're trying to talk about, and to the meat of the charges. But what I've experienced is that if you actually take the time to listen and let them talk about the land story from several days prior, and how all of these things leading up from the land story to what's brought them before the court today, there is a connection. And all of these things, while you might not think that they're important, they are often important to the individual who's leading up to the story with this land connection. When you're working with clients in respect to the land, building trust and rapport, of course, is important in any solicitor-client relationship. But when you're able to relate to the land, and you know what the land is, and you've spent some time getting to know the land in the area where you're practicing, it can give you an opportunity to have some insight into what your clients are where your clients are coming from, what their communication styles can be like in relation to how they use the land to tell a story or to explain a situation, a reason why they're before the court. The IQ principles quite deeply go into decision-making processes and how they relate to the land and survival, and relatedly into the community dynamic process. Establishing credibility and demonstrating empathy when working with your clients and being able to connect their experiences to the land can be beneficial when you're crafting conditions for an individual, considering their land-based activities, whether it's gathering berries in the tundra or whether it's hunting, whether they are an avid camper and require a weapon for self-preservation when out on the land, even if they're not a hunter, making sure that you take the opportunity to discuss with a client all of the activities that they do that are on the land, so that you're able to provide the court with that information and craft conditions or circumstances for whatever the matter is, that are going to support your client's way of life and relationship with the land. Amanda, do you have anything you'd like to add at this point?
When we get lawyers come here, we always try and share our culture of food. We'll make muskox or caribou and have them try that. So if you guys come here, just give us heads up and we'll have something for you. That's all I got.
I wonder, Amanda, when you're sharing that cultural food with the lawyers, what have those experiences been like for maybe somebody who hasn't had the opportunity to share any traditional food yet? I think that some folks who might not be from Nunavut or are new to practicing in the territory might not even know what that looks like.
We usually share caribou or muskox and some char. The lawyers really like muskox, and then some lawyers like the caribou more. Springtime we'll have, if caribou, the migration's changing, so we've had no caribou come around, but we could help people, a lot of the lawyers, me and my family could show them like springtime's coming, bring warm clothes. There's a chance we'll take you out fishing or take you to the cabin. Maybe get to see muskox or caribou when they're coming by the spring.
Why do you think it's important for lawyers who are not from Nunavut to learn about the land in Nunavut when they're working here?
Because we live off the animals that we get out land. We find it more healthier than buying store-bought food, and it's cheaper for us. Like, but having to buy meat and all this stuff from the store is very expensive all the time, and we just grew up on country food, and I don't think we'll ever give that up.
Mm.
And one caribou lasts for a family of 5 for about a month, and a muskox, which is 600 to 1,000 pounds, could last probably 6 months to a year. That's after giving out lots, sharing the muskox meat with a lot of family members and to the community. So there's always, when somebody catches something, there's always sharing between families and the community.
When you've been working with lawyers and clients in the past, Amanda, have you found any times where the lawyer could have done a better job of listening to the clients in relation to them talking about how they use the land or how conditions need to be appropriate to the land? Have you noticed anything like that when you've been?
I don't think they realize how much work it is, how much it costs. Like for example, if we were to go hunting right now, we have to go towards Akvet, which is more than 8 hours, depending on how rough it is. And then after all that drive, it you get your caribou or your muskox, then it takes another 2 to 3 hours to skin and butcher it, pack it up, and come back with it. So that's like more than 16 hours too.
Mm. And
It's a, it's a lot of work. It costs a lot of money. Skidoos break down. A lot of things could happen. And you have to know the land. You can't just go out there and think you're gonna survive on your own if without someone teaching you or taking you out.
mm. And so, Amanda, my understanding is like Inuit used to be out on the land quite frequently, or like lived on the land, obviously, and then were taken, or taken and forced to join communities, or having to join communities because of the decline in some of the availability of uh, animals to hunt when they're out on the land. And so this is going to be a question that's kind of a big question, so I understand if you don't have an answer for it, but I wonder, do you have any insight into how house arrest type of conditions can be really difficult for somebody who is who is Inuk from Nunavut and like has that kind of relationship with the land, and then like was forced to be in a community, and now if they're having a condition with regards to house arrest, like, do you think what do you think about that situation? Is that difficult for people, or are people able to, what's your position there?
Some families have hunters, and then if that hunter ends up in house arrest, that provided for more than one family because, for example, if somebody from my house got arrested and got house arrest, and that person was a hunter, that would be one household that doesn't have any more country food, and then they usually help like the aunts or cousins. So that's like more than maybe that's a lot of people that wouldn't be that couldn't depend on that person no more.
Right. So it's the impact is like much wider than just that one person when that kind of condition is imposed.
Yeah, it's more than one household that will be affected if a hunter would get that,
Mm. Mm.
and men and community members, because people usually share what they get with family and the community,
Mm.
and not too many people are able to go out land and be a good hunter like most guys are.
Yeah, not everybody has those skills. You've really, I mean, from what I understand, it's you really learn quite a bit from your family members, and it's years long process to learn to be able to navigate out there on your own.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
All right. Moving on to our next slide here. Um, we're going to talk a bit about culture. Maybe I'll let Amanda start this one off talking about, as some of you may have been watching CBC's North of North.
You guys all have to watch that. That's the best show. It's so Inuk, like the way they act is the way we really are, and the sarcasm, the thoughts, like everything they do is, I think almost every household in Nunavut can relate to how they're acting and what they're saying, and it's just a really good show
It's a
tonight.
great
Yeah,
it's a
it's
great like idea of like, or for folks who are new to practicing in Nunavut to learn about the culture and like how people relate to one another.
Yeah, every Inuk I think loves that show right now. Everyone's waiting for the next season.
You can also, for folks new to Nunavut, when you're watching North of North, you can also see these facial expressions that Amanda was modeling earlier, used quite a bit in the show, and you can get a sense of some of the body language that's used in Nunavut to convey meanings. I'm going to play a quick video, and in that video, so please pay attention to this video, and then can you see it? No, I don't think you can. Oh, Mandy Samertalk loves, sorry, I didn't have my chat open. Oh my gosh. No spoilers. We didn't give any, I don't think. It is a really good show. I'm obsessed with it. Okay, I'm going to share this video. And then we're going to have a chance to all come back and chat about the video. So if you have anything that arises for you while we're watching, please feel free to make a note, and then we'll come back and I'll chat about it. I'm going to open the chat. If for some reason you can't hear the sound, please note it in the chat, and I'll fix that. I see that somebody could not hear the volume. I'm going to assume that was for everyone.
I could hear it.
Oh, you could hear it. Okay.
Yeah, I could hear it.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, Judith, sorry, it might be you. Everybody else can hear it. Okay, I'm gonna go back to playing it. Judith, you might just need to turn on your volume.
They took our tongues. They tried to take our tongues. We lost our language. And we didn't. In Nuvula, we didn't. In Nuvula. You can't take that from us. You can't take that from us. You can't take our blood. You can't take that from us. You can't have my tongue. You can't have my tongue, Inuvunga. You can't have my tongue. You can't have my tongue, Inuvunga. Tukisivunga. You can't have my tongue. I don't want your God. I don't want your God. Put him down. Put him down. I don't want your shame. I want to come. I want to come. I want to come. your shame. It doesn't belong to me. You can't have my tongue. Inuvunga.
Oh no, not the next one. Okay. We're going to come back to the presentation now. So that was Tanya Tagak's video Tongues, video and song Tongues. And for me, I really find that every time I watch that video, I take something else away. I think it's a very powerful video for us to think about when we're interacting with clients in Nunavut. And what the big thing that I was thinking about when I was watching it this time is respect and how vital it is that as lawyers, we are respecting all of the experiences that our clients are coming to us with in their pasts. We see in this video a mouth with a tongue. There's no eyes and no nose. We can only see the mouth and talking about taking their tongues, taking their language. We can't see in the video, we can't see the eyes, which is, as Amanda has already explained, like so important to how many Inuit communicate with their eyes. So what we are seeing in that video is this mouth with the tongue, and then the tongue being taken away by the cross, which is, I think, in how I interpret the video, just imagery of colonization and taking away that language. And so something I was talking about earlier with respect to language was that colonization really took away a lot of folks' ability to communicate in their traditional language. So when I watch this video, I see the top of the face being in the earth, in the Nuna, and so this way that they're communicating even today, they being our clients in the situation that I'm talking about, not being able to communicate properly with the folks, the lawyers that are coming in often from southern jurisdictions. And if you're not being very focused on a client-focused practice and taking the time to understand Inuit and the folks living in Nunavut, and taking the time to take a program like what we're doing today and learning from folks like Amanda who are sharing how to communicate with your eyebrows and with your shoulders and with your face. If you're not taking that time, you're going to be missing it. All you're going to see is this like tongue that they're unable to fully express themselves with. You're only getting half the picture. And so when I watch that video and think about like that graphic translated into the solicitor-client relationship, it's just so potent to me. And I see, yeah, just respect was the big word I took away when I was watching it. This time. I'd like to open it up to have a group discussion. If you have an analysis of that video within a client-focused perspective that you would like to share, I would love to hear it. I've shared this video in this way many times, and I always am very interested to hear other folks' impressions and interpretations. Please also feel free to share a personal reflection, a time where you've had a good client focused practice, or you wish you had done something different. You can also ask specific questions of Amanda and myself, or feel free to incorporate some of your own suggestions that perhaps some of the newer members of the bar that are on the call should be considering, because I am not Inuk. I am not from Nunavut. I am just sharing with you the perspectives that I've learned while I've been here. And so I know that there's some really amazing folks in the room. I'd love to hear from from other people's perspectives.
Marie here. Just briefly of this question of communication and like I know it's been it's been mentioned, but it's not that Inuit have difficulty communicating. Like we shouldn't expect Inuit to, it should be the other way around, like meet clients where they're at, meaning learn their language in a way. And I know that that's very difficult. It's challenging. Even us Inuit lawyers are relearning, language that in the video it's showing it's been actively, government and others have actively tried to destroy our culture and language. So we're in a process of relearning it, but also beyond body language, I think as much as possible, it's that Inuit are masters of our own language. So to, as much as possible, to meet them where they're at and learning the language versus expecting Inuit to communicate in English and in, so just framing it in a way where it's not that Inuit aren't lacking anything. We're not. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so much, Marie. That's exactly it. And I do hope that that's what people take away from this presentation, that it's on us as the lawyers coming in to work with folks, to do this work, to meet people where they're at. It's definitely on us. And that's what I'm suggesting in this client focused practice, CLE, that we as practitioners need to be taking that time to learn how we can best serve our clients.
I would share that I've certainly made mistakes, and I admit to making mistakes in that respect. We brought a translator with us into the community on a small plane because we were meeting with people and we appreciated that there would be potential language difficulties. But then we got there and I had not appreciated that there's so many different dialects. And so we had a translator there that was not the same dialect as some of the clients in that community. And I had not appreciated that, having not been to that community before. And so I think we were trying to do the right thing. And I think we made the communication worse because that just made, like, it just highlighted that we had not appreciated who we were going to be speaking to. And so I would say, like, yes, be respectful and try to learn something about the language, but also recognize that people in Nunavut don't all speak necessarily the same dialect. So it matters a great deal where you're going to be in terms of what the communication is going to be like and what you need to think about in terms of being able to improve that communication.
That's a great point. I think that the Law Society is a great resource to when you're thinking about coming to Nunavut and doing some kind of community focused programming. The Law Society offers quite a few different access to justice initiatives in different communities, and specifically they've recently launched they've either just launched or are about to launch a community resource handbook. And that community resource handbook is a tool that is free to access to the communities. I'm sure Rebecca can chime in later on and advise us where we can get a copy, but it's a great resource to learn more about a community and find out what services are there and who you might be able to contact in order to get more information before you go to a place, so that you have all of that information. Amanda, do you have any suggestions on what lawyers can do before they come into a community to make sure they're best prepared to work with folks in that area?
I don't think some of them are ready to come. And when they come here, they're shocked and I don't know. It's isolated and some stores don't have what you'll need. I don't know.
Mm. Just do some research, I think.
And Kivalliq has, I think, 3 dialects. There's
Mm.
Akviet, Well Cove, and Baker. And then Coral Nauyat and Rankin and Chester are almost the same. But most of the people that you deal with when you come here are children of people that went to residential school. So they do a lot of body language.
Mm.
And then one of the lawyers said to me, the women will not look me in the eye. And then I just said, women usually don't if they were abused, sexually assaulted, or experienced something bad from a man. So the women won't give eye contact if they're not comfortable with you.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I do believe, Amanda, you are absolutely right there. A lot of a lot of lawyers aren't ready to go to Nunavut yet. I'm Uvang Amandi Samukdok. I've been practicing law for 17 years now. I started I was at the Law Society, not Law Society. I was over at Maliganik over in Iqaluit for the first few years as a defense lawyer. I worked with Abe because I was a single mom. I didn't leave the town. I leave Iqaluit, but I had a lot of my I did all my criminal law practice there, and boy, I had a lot of clients, and me and Justice Kilpatrick got close before he left. But Abe and I ran that court very well in terms of cultural understanding, and it got to be understandable that Inuit culture is not understood in the justice system, period. And Indigenous culture isn't, but especially Inuit culture. My father was Paul Sammukdok. My family's from Chesterfield Inlet. I'm a Kivalliq Mute. That's my Amok and my Ituk behind me. I'm now currently working as a federal lawyer, and I've been working on the Indigenous justice strategy, specifically on working with in Inuit co-development at the Inuit co-development table. And it's really hard, especially to work in the federal government, because there's so much systemic racism, and especially in the justice system. And it's really hard to do that, especially as an Inuk. And but watching, especially as the defense lawyer, as an Inuk, and trying hard to work for my clients in a colonial system, trying to understand, that they're going through issues, especially with intergenerational trauma or residential school or other things. They, and then understanding that there's not the right type of, it's not the right type of system, and then fighting with the system, trying to get the proper help for them. And then I know that the Gladue issues were really hard for me, because that case isn't set up to properly help Inuit. But luckily, I know Abe and I were able to get to know our clients properly to give at least the judges that were sitting for us, who understood, who were able to understand our submissions. They were able to understand what we were trying to say. You know, like, it's just such a problem with the system that you really need to have lawyers who are not going up there thinking it's the same thing. And they don't. So you need people who understand that, one, the Inuit culture isn't the same as Métis or First Nations, because it's not. You can't just go and say, oh, it's an Indigenous culture, it's fine. Nope, Inuit aren't the same. And that's something that really needs to be understood. And they have to be willing to learn about the culture, the different culture, and why it is. They have to be willing to accept or understand it, and then be willing to work in it with Inuit and with the proper people like Amanda, not just fly up. I'm sorry that I'm going to call you out. Fly up with somebody, you know, with just some sort of translator or an interpreter and think it's going to be fine. Because as an Inuk, I would be really frustrated and disappointed and probably angry, because I would think you didn't care. I know I'm on my Chesterfield Inlet page for community page, and I think, well, I know Chester's court is every about 3 months, and I know that in February, or what's February, January, December, January, maybe it was November's court was canceled, and I was like, and the cops went on there and said, hey guys, by the way, your court is canceled next week. If you have any questions, call me, call the cops. And I'm like, holy shit, you want these guys who are charged with a crime to call the cops and say, hey, why can't I go to court? You know, if you got a first offense, or if you're checking up to see what's going on, or if you've got a trial, you know, like, what the hell? So I've got some friends who are judges still. I gave them an email saying, hey, so and so, why isn't there court next week? And they were like, oh, well, Justice Crawford, no, not Crawford, Justice whoever, said that there's not enough court workers, or court. I was just looking at his email. There's not enough court staff, so they decided to cancel it. And then he said, yeah, I think that the police, probably the court staff, should have been issuing that notice and not the cops. So, you know, things are being done wrong in Nunavut, and they need to change, of course. Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Mandy. I think, I'll let Nuka say some words. I think we're at time, so if people need to go, that's understandable. But I'd like to keep the conversation going for a few more minutes, enough to let Nuka say something and then for me to close.
Thanks very much, Victoria. Thank you and Amanda for the presentation this morning or afternoon now. It's 12 here in Cambridge Bay. I just wanted to bring into the discussion almost like a friendly reminder about communicating about client files and perhaps situations. In my experience, I've overheard, colleagues making comments and entering into discussions without regard for other colleagues. And I know lawyers rely on one another at times to vent and have very candid discussions, but also I think it's good to remember our presence and others' presence and ensuring respect all around. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. That's very important for us to be thinking about. I think that I would like to just end the session by saying, and thanks Mandy for bringing up Abe. When I first got to Nunavut just over 5 years ago, there was no kind of cultural competency training program that was offered to me before I got to Nunavut. I did as much online research as I could, but it just really wasn't good enough. And so I was very privileged to be able to go sit my butt down in Abe's office and say to him, Abe, what do I need to know? Can you give me a course on what I need to do? How can I best work in this territory and do the best I can for my clients? And Abe's answer was pretty simple, and it was just listen to them. He gave me a lot more information. I sat in his office for a few hours, but the main thing that he said was the most important piece was to just listen to your clients and let them express themselves and let them say what they need to say and to not rush them. Just listen and you'll eventually get what you need. So that's all for me. Amanda, do you have anything you'd like to say to close the session?
No.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for sharing your lunch hour, some of you with us. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or suggestions on how I can improve this presentation or any comments you'd like to share on things I could do better. I'm always open to hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, Vic.
You too, Amanda. Bye.
Bye. How do